At least 80,000 new homes to be built across Singapore in the next 10 to 15 years, including near the iconic shopping belt of Orchard Road under the URA's draft master plan. The plan also to see new integrated community hubs in Woodlands North, Kang and Sengkang, bringing together health, sports, retail and recreational facilities under one roof. Also under the URA's draft plan, Singaporeans can now look forward to more amenities in 3 areas that lend a distinct character to the country. They can better explore these areas, which are called identity corridors, and get to know them more intimately. Visitors to the historic East Identity Corridor can expect a new pedestrian mall along East Coast Road. It will be between 2 shopping centres, I12 Katong and Katong V. They can also look forward to a new public space in the area where they can enjoy events and activities held for the community. At Kallang River Identity Corridor, a new waterfront park will be built along the Kallang River between Serangoon Road and Bendemeer Road. New cycling paths and improvements along the riverbank near St. Andrew's Village will also allow more visitors to enjoy the waterfront view. At the Inner Ring Identity Corridor, made up of several neighbourhoods, the stretch of Zion Road will be made easier to explore with wider walking and cycling paths. More cycling paths will also be added in the Orchard area and Lavender Street by 2030. And Singaporeans can expect a guide of these places so they can learn their unique history. URA says it will continue to speak with residents and stakeholders to develop plans for these places. The former site of Singapore's first heavy industry factory, government English school and horse racing venue will be conserved as the nation strives to retain a slice of its history. These sites were picked in line with a new framework set up to guide conservation efforts. It groups buildings under 4 themes linked to the nation's growth: economy, housing, defence and social. Muhammad Bahadrat with more.
Singapore could not have developed the way it did in its early years if not for Nat Steel, the nation's first heavy industry factory. It was the sole supplier of steel for Singapore's houses in the 60s. It also provided material for Changi Airport and even the first MRT system and trains. It supported Singapore's transformation into a global business hub and fulfills the economy aspect of a framework guiding conservation efforts. The roof design in this building was considered an engineering feat at its time. It was one of the first in using steel for such a large structure while adapting to the tropical climate of Singapore. For some, it was seen as a symbol of the nation's progress while being highly versatile in its industrial ambition.
Right now, we are exploring various options to see how else we can use this building so that everyone else and the public can appreciate this, because this is not a journey for Nat Steel, this is also a journey for Singapore.
20 buildings from the former Singapore Turf Club have also been proposed for conservation, with the area planned for new housing estates. They include the Fairways quarters that has a kampong-like courtyard serving workers who lived in the Turf Club.
It's also important to try to preserve elements of architecture that maybe lend to its identity, that are also maybe important to tell that story of that building, for example. So a building may have certain characteristics, certain features.
Opened in 1933, Pasir Panjang English School is also slated for conservation. The school was one of the first in the area and is part of the social element in URA's new guide, meeting the community's needs as the nation progressed. With the area set for residential development, integrating the school into the landscape will give it a new lease of life.
That's why we grew up, that's why we communicate with each other, that's why we have fun, that's why we study. Those memories really identify who we are, and therefore preserving old buildings and old neighborhoods will help us establish our identity and then sort of reaffirm who we are.
He adds that conservation requires retaining a building's significance by combining its function and its identity markers.
The former Jurong Bird Park is also set to go through a major makeover. Once an iconic attraction, the site along the nearby Jurong Hill could even include a greenhouse-style wellness facility. Here are some of the proposals that won a competition seeking ideas to reimagine the space. One of the winners proposed transforming the former bird park into separate zones, with a business hub, communal space for emerging firms, and a greenhouse-style wellness facility. The aim is to foster a space of well-being that attracts talent and innovation. Another proposed having underground tunnels that connect different areas with eco-friendly facilities and more connected pedestrian paths. At its center is a man-made cave serving as a hub for collaboration. The goal is to champion sustainability while preserving surrounding habitats. Another winner also aims to utilize small water bodies in the area for activities like water sports. Parts of the space include a multi-story high-tech agricultural farm and playgrounds with a public zone for recreation between industrial buildings. Some of these ideas will be distilled to guide the site's future use and redevelopment. And to give us a deeper analysis into URA's draft master plan, I'm joined again by Professor Sing Tien Foo, Provost's Chair Professor in the Department of Real Estate at the NUS Business School. Professor Sing, thank you for joining us again. Now, the proposals include new malls, cycling paths among the amenities for neighborhoods, earmarked as new identity corridors. How far do these go in strengthening individual neighborhood identities?
I think the cycling path and connectivity are important aspect of what we call active mobility. I think to make the neighborhood more connected and also to allow people to commute from place to place, work, home, and so on. I think the cycling path actually encourage a lot more sustainable kind of commuting and also reduce reliance on the private vehicle. On the identity corridor, that is very important as well because all these identity corridor, the 3 additional corridor being identified here, added to another 18, I think, as identity corridor which have been previously planned. I think these 3 identity corridor have their own unique local charm so that people can actually still remember how these areas actually people live and work and play in this area. Like for example, the Moonstone Estate, there's actually a national aeration water factory there. So those people who actually, older generation who know about Sinakos, Kikapo, probably have some affiliation, recognition about this location. These are the identity notes that we try to preserve while we actually continue to urbanize.
Do you see Singapore striking a good balance between heritage conservation and meeting future needs, or can more be done?
Yeah, I think over the years, I think it's always difficult to balance history and developments. How do you preserve historical kind of heritage and value at the same time to undergoing these rapid developments? In the past, many good buildings have been actually demolished and give way for development, especially in the CBD areas. I think subsequently, government realized that we need to preserve some of these. We started with large-scale preservation in, for example, Little India, Chinatown. Now, I think other than the physical structures, I think they start to look at other places of with historic significance. For example, your Net Steel Pavilion, even the Bukit Timah or the Pasir Panjang English School. These are some of the locations with significant or historical significance. So I think preserving some of these buildings. And I think the other important thing is how to make adaptive reuse of this building. I think that is important. I think moving forward, not just keeping this building, we have to think about what is the best way to adapt and reuse.
Well, speaking of reimagining space, the former Jurong Bird Park is set to be redeveloped. How versatile is this site, and what is the best way to reuse it?
Right, if you look at Jurong Bird Park, together with the Jurong Hill Towers, I think this a location with very unique kind of terrains and greenery, especially Jurong Hill Tower. This is symbols of what we call industrialization in Singapore, where the Jurongs was used to be a mudland, and how this land has been reclaimed and transformed the Singapore industrialization kind of process. I think to keep this place is important. How to actually reimagine this place? I think important to keep this space, the terrains, the environment as well. So I think combining or blending the work and play kind of idea will be very important. How to make these areas innovative space and different from what we used to, to develop some of these industrialization area where we just had to build factory after factory. This space probably is important to keep the terrain, the environment, at the same time creating space which can be creative, innovative, and while keeping the sensitivity to the environment as well.
Well, thank you for joining us to help us dissect the master plan from the URA.
Right.
That was Professor Sing Tien Foo, Provost's Chair Professor in the Department of Real Estate at NUS Business School.